What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. Today's guest is someone who's been surrounded by hospitality from a young age, a skilled leader who masterfully balances all parts of a project, resulting in a polished, finished product. Her work touches many major aspects of hospitality, designing spaces for hotels and senior living facilities. She started as a junior designer at Culpeper, McAuliffe, and Metters, and worked her way up to principal and vice president at C+TC or CTC Design Studio. Ladies and gentlemen, Billie Thorne. Welcome, Billie.
Thank you. It's great to be here. How are you today?
I'm so good today. It's this nice 4th of July week to celebrate it. I find a lot of people aren't working this week, so it allows me a time to get ahead of things and feel more in control than I normally am. How about you?
I usually take this week off, and we took vacation early, so I'm in. And I got to say, having a day off on Tuesday, really, it messes up. You don't know what day it is, but it makes for a lovely week. I got to tell you.
I completely agree. And also, I would also say, as entrepreneurs, we kind of also never take time off as well. And I think what's really intriguing about your story and your journey, unlike so many people today where, 2 years is considered a long time at a place of employment. You started working as a junior designer at Culpeper, McAuliffe, and Metters, and then stayed working there, and then eventually became a vice president at the same company, which rebranded to C+TC to incorporate you as a partner. But I'm very fascinated by that because you seem to be the exception to the rule. And I think it's a real kind of source of inspiration for others that kind of sticking with things, really believing in your team and mentors to become who you are. That's why I wanted to have you here today. And in light of that and thinking about that kind of structure, doing hospitality design, how do you define hospitality and what does it mean to you?
Well, hospitality ultimately is about kindness. I would love to tell you that it's all about the fabulous hotel design work we do here, but there are so many components that really make hospitality what it is. And we're really just a small part of it. It's all about the people. And as far as being here for as many years as I have been, it's, finding your home, finding your comfortable spot. And I've had two great jobs in my career. The first job was with Hirsch Bedner and Associates, and then have been here since. And I guess this was my home and a comfortable place and allowed me to grow. And now my job is to help others grow, which I really, really love. So it's fun to watch designers be excited about what they produce.
And I think that that's an important maybe point of departure for our conversation because as we become leaders in our companies and our industries, one of the most important things that we can all do is really focus as much time that we have as possible on helping bring on the next generation of leaders, right? And it's this accretive process where, it's not a zero-sum game. It's a 1 + 1 = 3, 5, a million, whatever. But I think it's something we all need to make sure that we're being cognizant and intentional about as far as bringing up the next leaders. So, and I think, thank you for sharing that because I think what's really cool is to hear about how you were spotted as a aspiring leader and brought in as a partner. And then how do you do that with your teams as well to make sure that you're devoting time and energy to bring on the next round of leaders?
I will say for me, that's been a big, big evolution in a lot of ways. One of the big things that we don't learn in design school or architecture school is anything about psychology or how, we don't really learn about how to work with people, which is so, so important because there is not a mentoring process that is one size fits all. So whenever you hire a new designer, it's kind of figuring out what system works with them. And sometimes, most of the time, you can figure it out and they can gel with the team. Every now and then it doesn't work. And that's just, it's frightening. And you try to figure out what you've done wrong. But more often you figure out something and that helps them grow and helps them learn and really kind of inspires them to become a designer. And that's my favorite part, is kind of trying to figure that out. But that took me a long, long time, because the way I was trained doesn't work for everybody I hire. And we're also in a very different world. And if I train people the way I was trained, it perhaps might not go over as well as I'd like.
Totally.
So it's always a learning process. And I tell my team daily is, when you stop learning, there's a problem. Because we all have to keep learning, and that's part of what energizes us and keeps the job interesting. So,
and Billie, I think what's interesting about this idea of bringing on leaders and nurturing the next round, some people don't want to be. Some people are like, they have this really incredible work-life balance or work-life presence where, they want to be a designer, but they want to do the work that they're doing, or an accountant or a whatever, and they're doing their work and they're happy with that because they have a million other things going on. And then there are those other ones who want to be a leader and want to help coach and bring the best out of others and, be that 1 + 1 = 3. How do you have a way of kind of figuring out that? Is there like a litmus test that you do, or is it kind of more natural as you're just going through and interacting and nurturing your teams?
It varies by person. And over the past 3 years, I've worked to evolve our review process to make it more of a coaching process. Mm-hmm. We had this process that was 2 sheets of paper, and you graded somebody and you came up with a score and you talked about that. But it was a conversation, but it didn't really allow input. So our new form is something that goes in, we go into the meeting blank. And we start talking, and it's a kind of the questions on the form are more to talk about things that you don't talk about in your normal day-to-day, and try and kind of see what people want to do next steps in their career. Because you're 100% right that everybody's got a different track. And I learned that about 15 years ago. I was reviewing a designer and we were talking, and it wasn't a great review. And she said, I don't want to manage people. I'm content doing what I'm doing. And I don't think if I had run into that person that was so honest and so comfortable with what she was doing, it would have taken me a lot longer to understand that, because I was very career driven. What's my next step? What's my next level? But there are a lot of people that aren't that way. And it's 100% perfect, because typically they're very, very good at what they do.
Yeah.
And it's understanding that that's their passion, and they may not, that's where their comfort zone is. So, finding people's comfort zones, well, you want to take people out of their comfort zone at times. Some people just can't go there. And again, that is what is to me, when I figure that out about a person, it's very, very exciting to me.
Okay, so that's exciting to me too, because even though I believe that it's important that we all, no matter what track we're on, kind of get out of our comfort zone. But maybe there's if you look at this kind of path in the road, there's kind of a leadership, and then maybe in your case, a design path. But I still think it's important for those people who don't want to go on a leadership path to get uncomfortable, because that's also how we grow. And specifically as designers or other administrative, if there's other administrative functions in your company, which I know there are, or just other maybe not design related ones, how do you ensure that even the folks that might not want to go onto a leadership path, how do you kind of challenge them in the seats that they're in so that they're getting uncomfortable, but also growing and not stagnant?
That's why the goal conversation is so important. One of the things I like to ask is, what are your significant accomplishments? And I usually have an idea of what I think their significant accomplishments are, but understanding in their mind what the accomplishments are is really important. And then talking about the next year's goals. And I give anybody I talk to an opportunity. You want to meet once a week, once a month, once a year, and it changes per person as well. But understanding those goals, and just because they say their goals, I tell them this, that's not you're going to get things that aren't on your goal list, because again, you do have to put people out of their comfort zone, because it does make them grow. And sometimes if you don't leave that comfort zone, you don't know that there's something else you like.
I totally agree. And it's like, I don't know, I'm sure we've all had trainers, whether coach, like physical trainers or coaches at some point in our lives, but they're not doing their job unless you're getting uncomfortable, right? Because then we really find that next level. I think, to bring it back to your idea of as you're coaching and kind of finding alignment between yourself and then your teams. You said originally that hospitality to you is really about kindness. When you're in those meetings, sometimes people can be very like stressed out. Sometimes the coach or the manager could be as well. How do you bring kindness into that so that everyone's comfortable, so that you can get it to the next level?
That's why I went to more this conversation format, because I think when you come in with a prepared document, I've always felt like I had to have my say, but it's really not. It needs to be a conversation, because what I assume, I can't assume that I know what they want. So when you come in with an open mind about having a conversation about goals instead of here are your next steps, that allows it to evolve and be more directed towards that person's ideas instead of what my ideas are. Because the employee I mentioned before taught me a huge lesson. What I thought she should be doing wasn't what she wanted to do. So that moment was a real game changer for me, and how I train people and talk to people and things like that. Of course, we still need to make money, so we can't do everything. It's a business, and everybody here really likes a paycheck, is the other thing I've discovered in life. So, we have to temper the goals with a functional business. So there's that component that has to be overlaid. And sometimes there are those hard conversations where here's what we need to do so that, we bill enough to cover your costs and we remain open as a company. So that's just another layer of it. But as I've got, a son who is 24, so he's out in the working world, and he's in the IT side of the world, so very different, but I love talking to him and kind of getting his feedback on what he likes in reviews and what he sees in his office. And I actually love talking to people in different industries. I've got friends that are very varied in what they do, and I get a lot of inspiration and ideas from talking to them, and they're not all achievable in every industry, but hearing different ways is also very helpful in how to coach and mentor people, I found.
I totally agree with you. And one of the things that I was intrigued by, and maybe we can jump into into that now, is like, as far as you going onto that leadership path and becoming a leader, you appreciate mistakes, because
Some
there are
days.
opportunities for learning. Right. Well, within reason, obviously. There's a spectrum of mistakes, but like, how did you come to see that mistakes are also opportunities for learning?
That's a hard lesson. And I learned that partly in parenting as well as working here. And I think as a parent, you so badly don't want your kids to make the same mistakes you did. And as a parent, I tried to make sure my kids didn't feel the same pain I felt over whatever issue it was. But at some point, as much as you think we should learn from history, which is very, very important, there are some mistakes everybody needs to make for themselves for them to really learn from them. So just hearing about them, or whether you're reading from the history book or however you have heard about mistakes, sometimes we all just need to be able to make them. And I think we all have examples of that in our life that we were advised one way and we went ahead and said, no, they don't know what we're talking about. But it's kind of tempering those moments to minimize the disaster. And then sometimes the other person may be right too. And you think, oh, that was wrong when I was going to do it 10 years ago, but times have changed. So it's got, it can be a detailing mistake or something, what I would have called a detailing mistake. But now we have ways to make it or produce it or, even like that. So sometimes I'm learning from mistakes I let them make.
And then as far as, I really liked how you shared a minute ago with your talking about your son in a different world, and then other peers of yours in different worlds than design or hospitality design, and you learned so much from them. What are the things that kind of what are some big lessons learned from people outside of what you do on a day to day that have really kind of helped kind of turn on a light bulb in your head?
That's a hard one. I will say, I think the biggest thing, and it wasn't really from a person, but I think it's COVID. Going home and not being around people for over a year and trying to do this job, which hospitality requires other people. And then we're designers and we're very collaborative. So being isolated was really hard. And then the person in me who's the more experienced individual, I kept thinking, okay, it's just because I haven't learned how I'm not as good on Teams, or I haven't learned how to show my ideas digitally. But here we are back in the office, back collaborating, and we're a hybrid work week. So that everybody seems very comfortable with that. And the days we're here, we are way more collaborative. And today is a day where nobody's typically in the office, and we've got 6 people in the office because we've got a huge deadline, and nobody felt like they could be as successful from home. I didn't ask for them to come in. I was shocked how many people were here when I walked in because I thought it was going to be very quiet to do this today. So, but I think there are some people who totally, when COVID hit, they were in their happy spot. And I think at first, a lot of us thought, oh, we've got so much free time. There's so many better things being at home. And then I think as time wore on, I think we realized how much we miss people. And some of us thrive on people more than I would have told you. I was somebody who I was very shy and avoided people. I'm not that person that I thought I was when COVID started. I was like, I just realized I'm really kind of an outgoing person that loves hanging out with people. But it's sad it took a pandemic for me to understand that part of my own nature. But then it also started getting me thinking about, what is hospitality? And how do you have hospitality when you're sitting at home by yourself? You can be kind to somebody on a video conference, but it's that physical togetherness, whether it's just in-person talking, whether it's just all the aspects of what we consider hospitality and kindness and being good to people, and all those kind of things really are part of what we do. And I joke in the office quite often, we're a hospitality firm. Even if we aren't in the hotel practicing hospitality, we need to be hospitable people. So that's how we treat each other. And it
all comes back to that idea of kindness.
Yes. Well, to me anyway. And
well, right. I'm parroting you, and I really like, but ultimately it's about like how you make those others feel. And, as I just heard you say that you were shocked by how many people are in there today, because in this hybrid place, typically people aren't. If you were to kind of think about, is there a thread you can find in that shock amongst all the people that are in the office today that could maybe help better find new talent or people who would surprise you? Like, because that's a really good thing. And I would say that while you're shocked and surprised, I think a lot of it has to do with the people that you attract, right? So in a way you're surprised, but I think that it's not by luck. I think that that's by design, whether you realize it or not. So can you think about like the types of people that you attract that would surprise you in that way?
I do like outgoing people, and I've got a good team right now, and they're really working well. I've always got a good team. I shouldn't say that, but this team really seems to be enjoying being around each other, and that makes a huge difference. And they seem to really enjoy working together. They will willingly help out each other on deadlines without me saying, hey, can you pitch in here? So when that happens, that's organic. That's what I love to see in a team, is that willingness, whether it's, can you come look at this fabric and see what you think? Or, hey, I've got 4 hours, I'll help you pick up red lines. I love when the team is willing to do that for one another.
Agree. And if you were to like select or attract those types of people, like is that an interview process? Is that like what's that secret sauce that you think you have that attracts those people?
I don't know. It does. A lot of times it comes through in the interview process. And when I always interview somebody and then have somebody else interview them
Hmm.
and don't really tell them how I think. Cause I kind of want, somebody who's been on the team a while to give me their feedback unbiased. Because they're going to be working together. It's not just whether I can get along with them. The team needs to get along with them. So there are times where their portfolio's fabulous and I'm thinking we should hire them. The talent's there. It's great, but it's hard to even have an hour-long conversation. So then I set them up with somebody else to say, was I having an off day? Did we just not click? But usually with my team, we have the same kind of gut instincts.
Um, when you started off in this industry, you were at HBA, Hirschbender.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find them, or how did they find you? Like, can you, like, where we're talking about how you're attracting people now to build this great team, do you think there's any similarities to way back when whoever from HBA or Hirschbender found you?
Well, when I graduated, there was a recession, the evil R word. So there were no jobs. And in Texas, it was really horrible. So I heard that Atlanta was still a strong city, came here, slept on a friend's sofa for a month. And partially I came here because my dad was a purchasing agent and had worked with HBA on two recent projects. And so he had actually helped me get the interview with HBA. So that's how they found me. And I'm surprised. I think there was some favoritism there. I'm not going to lie, because I graduated with an architecture degree. So I was probably a long shot as far as somebody to hire. I didn't have your typical interior design degree, but I was hired mostly to draft details, which worked great. It was an amazing experience, amazing mentor, Sandra
Who was that?
Fortner. Sandra
Oh,
Fortner.
oh, great.
Yes, yes. So, and then, the recession hit there. And so it was time to kind of come up with plan B. And I've been here since this was plan B. And I've been here since.
So similarly, I think one of my first tastes of our industry, I was an intern at Hirschbender, but in Santa Monica. But, just think about these enormous multinational design firms attract such great people. And it's a great kind of first step to kind of see who are the people that are in this industry and like what kind of a path could I help find myself. And I'm still friends with a lot of them, and I still joke with them that I was their intern.
I do too. I mean, I'm still good friends and keep in touch with most people. And then, here in Atlanta, we have a lot of HBA alumni. So, and there's a lot of camaraderie in that group as well, just sharing those stories. And there's a great group of people in the office here still.
Yeah. How many people? Because I think like if you look at all the folks that came from, an HBA or a Wilson or like those other kind of foundational design firms, like one thing that I appreciate about them is whenever someone else left to go start their own, they were in a way, very supportive. Like, yes, do this. Like, this is your path. Can you share any kind of similar experience about that?
I don't really have a story to tell about that. But there's never there's never been any negativity. It's always been positive. You're 100% right on. But it's interesting you bring that up because we're not seeing the number of alumni from Wilson and HBA as we used to. And so that's been a conversation of training in our office because so many people, when they came from that environment, were trained, whether it was filing system, drawing setup, spec style. And without the alumni coming there, it's turned into a different training method for us. And it took us a while to realize that's why we're like, why are people not understanding this? Because that wasn't their foundation. Where if we probably look back at what percentage came from one of those big hospitality firms then and now, it's very different. And we're having to do a lot of that groundwork training that whether HBA or Wilson did it before.
Oh, wow. So that's interesting. So it's almost like all that kind of administrative file architecture, whatever, they would just kind of come in knowing how a system works. And this was like the system, the Dewey Decimal System of how we're all working. But now they don't have a context. So now you're having to teach it. And I bet that takes a lot of time in your onboarding as well.
Well, and that's what we're learning is we need a bigger, better onboarding process because there isn't that legacy there. But we've also been able to hire some great designers that have come from different types of design. And it does take some training, but it's been really interesting to watch those designers grow, when they find out they can customize something instead of always having to buy it out of a catalog, or just kind of the things that hospitality allows you to do are very different. And it really is kind of an energizing thing to expand your design horizons, I think.
Okay, so now let's go with that word of energize. And I like the idea of energizing and kindness for the next question that I have, because I know in our earlier conversations, I didn't realize, but you love practicing yoga.
Yes.
And if you were to, okay, so now, we've talked about all this stuff within the company. If you were to think about what yoga has taught you about yourself and how, and energy levels and dealing with others, is there any correlation, or like, what did yoga teach you on your path of leadership?
Yoga really kind of balances me and I guess calms me down. It really is kind of that place, and it's physical as well as mental and emotional. It's kind of that's so hard. There are a lot of good lessons, and a lot of them are about kindness to people, and having kind words, kind thoughts, being kind in your heart. Those are all things we talk about, and just kind of thinking about others. It's a big premise of yoga. The other part of yoga I love is it's a really good workout, and I enjoy feeling like I've accomplished something. In my current role, I feel like there are days when I work long hours and I go home and I think, what did I do today? I didn't check one box off on a to-do list. So sometimes a yoga class gives me a sense of accomplishment that I finished something, but my job is really kind of making sure the studio's going. Yeah. And it's hard to quantify that daily.
Totally. And I think, I don't know, one of the things that I've learned over time, and it's funny how this happens with age, but we're often thinking about like our intellectual selves, our emotional selves, but oftentimes we neglect the information that our body's giving us. And if you think about this, our body being kind of like the computer, aside from our brain, like it all has to work together for the brain to work. I think that our bodies are really great teachers that oftentimes are really overlooked. At least speaking for myself, like I don't think we take enough time to really check in with the body.
Well, and that is something that yoga allows you to do, is really check in with your body, because one of the other big things that's come out in the past 3 years is you've got to take care of yourself, and that's a big premise of yoga as well. And it's, you got to take care of yourself so you can take care of others. And that is really important. Sometimes you think, oh, if I work a 12-hour day, I'm going to get more done. But sometimes working an 8 or 9 hour day and doing an hour of yoga gets you way further ahead than just, pushing through and doing a 12-hour day. You don't necessarily accomplish more. So it's kind of shifting that mindset that I was trained in, that the more hours, the better. I think it's about working smarter sometimes. Sometimes you do have to do the long hours. That's just part of this business, unfortunately. But but sometimes it's just being smart about what you're doing as well.
Yeah, it's almost like, we're all on so many airplanes, but it's like putting your own oxygen mask on first.
That's exactly what it is. And airplane seats aren't as comfortable as they seem to be, and so yoga helps with that situation as well.
100%. So you've had this fabulous career working for others, working your way up through Culpeper into C+TC. Like as you kind of from when you started to where you are now, like as you're looking out to the future, what's exciting you most about what you see out there?
That's been another mind shift, and I guess that's part of growing as mind shifts. It's that going from that to-do list that's not I'm not task oriented. My goal is to really keep people moving and finding the next great project, and understanding that my job has shifted from writing specs and doing drawings and pulling fabrics. And it's an evolution. It's not one day you wake up and say, oh, I'm not doing drawings anymore. It's all of a sudden you realize, oh, I haven't gone into the drawing program in 2 weeks and I've been busier than anything. And so for me, it's kind of been letting go of some things that I really, really felt like were my job and my responsibility, and kind of taking on things that are my new job, and understanding that that is, sometimes doing marketing or business development feels like fun. So should I be paid to do that? Because I'm hanging out with a lot of people I really enjoy, but it's very, very important for the future of the company. But understanding that that is work, and it does, I'm tired after doing a lot of it. That's been a really hard shift for me, is understanding that, and that's needed of me, and to let go of some of the other stuff. I don't know if that answered your question, but it's one of the
No, it
things I
does.
struggle with daily.
And I think that, if we could walk away from this impacting, people earlier in their careers, like what you're saying resonates with me totally, in that it's almost like I have to be sure after a trip or a trade show, or really putting myself out there for others, or even these conversations. We all need time to recharge. And I think it's really important to, like, time is our most valuable asset and most fleeting and most limited, and we're all given the same amount, whether you're Bill Gates or someone just starting out on their journey. We need to really be intentional about recharging and scheduling time for that. I completely agree with you.
And that's been a big lesson. I really have had a go, go, go mentality for a lot of years. So, and then, taking the time to kind of enjoy the space you're in, or the environment, or wherever you're at. Because I do love to travel. That's whether I'm traveling to a hotel in a city that doesn't seem glamorous, I love it because it's a new experience.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes just going to a new place is recharging. But in the frame of mind I'm trying to escape from, it was always, I've got to work. And then, but it's enjoying it and figuring out what that new environment is. So continuing to learn.
Agreed. And I think, whether it's a really nice hotel or a resort or a crappy hotel, or even just for me, just being stuck on a 6 or 10 hour airplane, I always make time to recenter and recharge, because those times when I'm able to be closed off, it really helps me fill my battery. And again, I agree with you. I think it's really important that we take that time. And for people starting, like, I would block out time, whether it's meditating or going for a walk or just totally unplugging. It's really important to do.
And without you, it's funny you brought up the airplane, because that's always been a major recharge time for me. I am that person who puts on my AirPods and gets out my book and starts reading if I don't have some crazy thing I've got to work on. And when COVID hit and I didn't have that time, it was a real realization that was that time I'd taken on airplanes, or whether it was being in a hotel room at night. Those are where I'd taken those moments.
Yeah.
And when COVID hit, there weren't those moments. So it was kind of trying to figure out, how do I recharge now? Because the old way I recharged was not available to me.
And it's crazy how, without being intentional about it, you took that airplane time for your recharge and your get ahead and just you time. And I actually just saw, there was this guy, I think in like the 90s, early mid 90s, he paid like $250,000 for unlimited flights on United. And he had, 23 million miles flown, which I did the math, divided by like 500 miles an hour. And I forget what else. It came out to like, what was it? A couple years in a pressurized metal tube, which sounds terrible, but I'm probably a tenth of what he was. I think I did it on mine, and I was like 9 or 10 months in a pressurized metal tube. And again, I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going down to see the Titanic. Right?
Don't do that.
But the point is that I would use that time as well to recharge and to get ahead of things. And COVID really also taught me that I need those times, and I'm not as good at scheduling those times, although now I'm traveling more over the past 6 or 8 months. So I've had that airplane time, but it really showed me that when I wasn't doing that, I had to be very intentional about scheduling time to just meditate, be unplugged, catch up on things without new information coming at me.
I was in the same boat, and I didn't love yoga at home. So, and you don't even talk to anybody at yoga. So I was shocked that it was that different practicing within a community versus on your iPad at home. But and then making the time, you're right. Like trying to leave my desk to go do a yoga class. It was hard to really kind of justify that in a lot of ways. But it's so important.
So as you're saying that, it makes me think, like, one of the things I've also realized is, look, I live out in Connecticut now, and there's beautiful nature, and I go hiking all the time, and it's great. But I miss living in Manhattan a lot. But because those other people that were around, and I'd be walking to work and just looking at, and like just they would like give me energy, right, and inspiration, and I miss that. So now it's like I have to be intentional about putting myself into big groups of random people because they also they give me energy as much as nature does. And it's like I found this interesting balance sheet between nature and just urban people overwhelm. So if we were to go back in time to when you finished University of Texas, you're under the clock tower, right?
Yeah.
It's the clock. They call it the clock tower, right?
That sounds right.
Okay, it's the big thing with the clock and the bell. Okay, in the middle of campus. So the Billie I'm speaking to now magically appears in front of the Billie just finishing. Is it this?
Hook 'em.
Hook 'em. There we go. Hook 'em horns. I'm not a big UT fan because I went to the University of Southern California and you guys beat us in the national championship one year, and it really upset me.
Sorry about that.
But anyway, you appear in front of yourself, and you have advice. What advice does the Billie I'm speaking to now have to the Billie just matriculating beyond the University of Texas at Austin?
Oh, to relax and just follow some whims and not be so serious. Your career will come. You don't have to dive in the moment you graduate. Yes, a paycheck is pretty fabulous, but if you want to take that trip, figure it out. If you want to go live someplace else, go do it. It's taking all those things, because the older you get, the harder it is, I think, to do that. And a friend of mine says, once you buy that washer dryer, you're stuck. And it's kind of true. I don't know why that happens, but it does.
That's hilarious. The washer dryer makes you stuck. And then I remember once trying to have my washer dryer unstick me. And I believe it was when we moved to New York City. This was a long time ago from LA. And that washer and dryer were such an anchor. I remember putting it in storage because I was like, I'm not going to get rid of this. Meanwhile, like 8 years later, I more than paid for the washer dryer. Oh, I never thought about it that way. Thank you.
But who doesn't love the convenience of walking down the hall to throw in a load of wash versus going to the laundromat or whatever you have to do? I mean, it is pretty fabulous when you get one.
It is, but it's also, along with that comes, some tethering, if you will.
It's a grown-up move for sure.
So definitely everyone listening to this, just starting out, don't buy that washer dryer. Just wait.
Make sure you're good and ready so you have that freedom.
That's really fantastic. Thank you. Who told you that, by the way?
It's actually a friend of mine she teaches at UVA, and she's about 10 years younger than I am. And I think it's what her father told her was, make sure you're really ready to own that washer dryer.
Oh my God. I didn't know the washer dryer was such a checkpoint or a milestone on the journey of life. So,
but if I look back, it was for me.
Totally. All right. So everyone, if you come out of this, really think about what happened before and after you bought that washer dryer? Because I'm going to start thinking about that. That's a fun exercise. That's hilarious. All right. Well, Billie, I just want to say thank you for being here and investing your time in this and allowing our listeners to learn from you. So I'm just eternally grateful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It was a lot of fun and good to share and talk about the future because the future is exciting and bright.
Yes, it really is, especially if you're looking at it with rose-colored glasses.
No, you don't even need those.
Right. Well, some people do.
Yes.
But if people wanted to get in touch with you or learn more about what you're up to, like how can they find you?
Through the C+TC Design Studio website, which we're launching a new website, I think before the end of the month.
Oh, great.
So that's very exciting. And then that's probably the best way to reach out to me. And I can give you my email address and you can add that in the contact info.
Okay, great. Maybe we'll just put in the LinkedIn there. That way you won't get overwhelmed.
Okay.
I think that's about it. I mean, I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Well, my biggest advice to youngins, besides waiting to buy the washer and dryer, is have passion for what you do because that is so important. I mean, it just impacts so many things about how you approach your day to day. And having that passion really makes it a lot easier and a lot more fun.
I agree. And it sounds so, I don't know, just like a sign you'd see on a wall or a pillow you'd see on a sofa. But it's true because if you're not living and working in your passion, things start to feel like work. If you are, it's really enjoyable and you're like in your zone. I like to call it the zone of genius,
Mm-hmm.
like where you're living and working within your natural gifts. And I think it's really important. We should all do that. So I want to thank you again and thank our listeners because without you guys, we wouldn't be here talking, and we keep growing every week. And if this changed your idea of hospitality or design, please pass it on to a friend because it's all been word of mouth. And we'll catch you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.